test. Is that better? And I hope you all get A's also. Just going on with what you said. As we, oh, here, we'll flip it just to. Okay. So as I was thinking about what to kind of share with you today, is it's your last lecture for the semester, and you've been learning all semester about technology and entrepreneurship. I thought I'd talk a little bit about something I get to spend my time on every day and kind of weave that into skills and things that I wish I would have known or that have become really critical to me today. And I'll kind of weave in some of my bio. I came to BYU. I studied computer science as my undergrad, and I did my MBA, both here at BYU. And I've really spent my entire career thinking about how you build product, how you take them to market, and how you get people to use them. And that technology background has given me a lot of interesting opportunities that when I was sitting in your seats, I would never have known about. And so hopefully today, as I kind of walk through the opportunities, I'll give you some interesting things to think about. I think about every day this idea of art of the possible. So did you guys know by the time you're 40, it's expected that you'll have 7 different careers. So I don't mean 7 different jobs. I mean 7 different careers. Things that look completely different from each other. And what that means when you think about having 7 different careers is that you end up investing in skills that become really important. I think that's one of the most important things we learn in our educational process, is that we learn how to learn and how to apply skills to all sorts of new settings. And that's what's happening both in the business world today and in anything that you head forward to do, whether you work for a company or whether you start your own. So I started a 3D printing company a few years ago. I've since sold it, but you could literally become Iron Man. So we took 3D scans of your face. You can become Iron Man. These 3 represent 3 of my alter egos that we created over the course of time, from Mouseketeers. We were at the Super Bowl when the Broncos played the Panthers, and you could become a player for your favorite team, and you could walk away with your statue, with your face, your name, your number, your Super Bowl medallion on it. And Hasbro even created a custom toy line for us that we blew out. And I'll give you some stories as we went through. It was a very cool company to build. It is not very often that tiny company gets to work with all of the biggest brands in the country, from the entertainment properties to the sports properties to the gaming properties. But there's a couple of things that I've learned and that I get inspired by still every day that I wanted to share with you. Okay, I've got to do a lot of cool things. I only threw this up there because I wanted you to think about all of the things that you're interested in, and I wanted you to know that you'll have an opportunity to do lots of great things. And as you develop skills, opportunities come your way. Today, not only do I have an opportunity to run companies, I had the opportunity to spend about 5 years at Disney and Imagineering doing technology commercialization. So I got to figure out how we would build technology products from the research that our really brilliant academics were working on and which business units those would go into. And then we built those products and we took them to market. It was a really fun thing to do. But I've been in all sorts of companies. I even today have the opportunity, I spend some time teaching at Babson in their executive ed program and with Goldman Sachs and all sorts of other things that have kind of been woven into my career. And my career looks like what yours will look like. I haven't had the same job my entire career. I've had lots of other opportunities and things that are distinctly different from each other. So one of the things, before I go in, one of the things that I get to spend every day that I wanted you to think about today is this idea of what's happening in the world when it comes to technology and innovation. Right? And how that not only impacts your world today, but the worlds that you're about to enter into to go for work. I get to sit down and work with all of these types of companies every day. Today I spend a lot of time with some of the big retailers, some of the big airline companies, some of the largest companies in the world, and the place that I get to spend time on is thinking about how technology is changing their businesses and what they have to change in their business in order to really meet the demands of a changing environment. 10 years ago, no one would have told you that the majority of our retailers would be suffering. Right? Amazon completely changed the landscape, and it's only accelerating from there. So I get the opportunity to think about in lots of sectors, and I was just going to highlight a few of these. Right now, I spend a bunch of time thinking about the retail experience How many of you buy more online than in a physical store? Right, me too. Right, from an airplane, I can order anything, right, and have it delivered to my door. My 17-year-old son, my son who's graduating, he sometimes also uses DoorDash just to get food delivered to our house, right, if we're not home or something's not working. Actually, the other day, he and his friends ordered Chip because they wanted some cookies. It was like Friday night, and they figured they needed some cookies delivered, right? It's a completely different world, right, where everything is available on our phone and integrated into delivery. How many of you have used the cookie delivery services? See, more of you than wanted to raise your hands have used. But it's such a cool thing to be able to transform. So you have retailers. So let me just give you a couple of other interesting insights. So did you know that 90% of Americans live within 10 miles of a Walmart or a Target? Okay, so I want you to think about that for a second. So what does Amazon have to do in order to get you product faster? What do they have to do? They got to build more infrastructure, right? They have to build more what? Buildings, right? They got to put more stuff closer to you. Otherwise, you don't get 2-hour delivery unless you sit in major cities, right? So they wanted to launch in Salt Lake City. What did they have to do? Build a massive facility. But what happens when you have big retailers who have that already right next to you? They have inventory, right? But their inventory is distributed, so they have a different problem. Right? They only have 5 items here and 5 items here. So they have to solve a problem of how you integrate all of that infrastructure. Right? And so retailers, or anyone that you think about, they have different challenges. Other thing I want you to think about, when was the last time you walked into a store and you picked up your phone and you searched for an item you saw right in front of you? How many of you did that? Okay, more of you do this than you are raising your hands. Every time I walk into a store, you walk into Target, you walk into Walmart for whatever reason, a Costco, you're like, I wonder if that's the right price for that item. I wonder if I can get it cheaper online. Like, oh, I'm standing here in the aisle with a product I could walk out with right now, and I'm searching on my phone. That retailer wants you to buy that right there. You're in their building. You are willing to spend money. How do they get you to buy that product at that moment? That's the number one question our retail companies are asking, is how you integrate physical and digital worlds in order to ensure a relationship with you. Right? And innovation is happening at this intersection. As I mentioned, I got to spend a lot of time at Disney thinking about what innovation meant there. So in Disney, there's a research arm. And the Disney research arm are all academics from MIT and Harvard and Carnegie Mellon and ETH, which is kind of the MIT of Europe and Switzerland. And these academics have been chartered with figuring out what types of problems will impact the Disney company over the next decade and what innovation they need to be investing in. So think of big problems: robotics, computer vision, artificial intelligence, right? Haptics, all sorts of things that are going in innovation but take a really long time to come to fruition. And so Disney created a division that is all about doing that because they want to be responsible for creating their own transformation, for creating their own innovation, for disrupting themselves, but meeting their objectives along the way. When we built the 3D printing company, I rode the personalization and 3D printing wave. 3D printing is still one of my very favorite technologies because it allows you to create on-demand things you could never imagine to be possible. It was never before thought that you could become like we built this really cool product with Hasbro where you can become a stormtrooper. You can take your helmet off and it's you as the stormtrooper, right? That's really cool. But we also got to do things like go to Major League Baseball. We went to the World Series. We went to the Super Bowl. But we also got to go and do all sorts of explorations in other products, all because of this ability that we got to create story. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what that looked like. So I've had the opportunity throughout my career to spend a lot of time thinking about what innovation and transformation looks like. And the thing that I know is that as you go build your career, the more involved you are in innovation and transformation, the more opportunities you have to create and to invent and to change how people consume and use and build the next generation of things. The world will look totally different 10 years from now. We will most likely not be driving cars like we drive today. Transportation will look different. Communication will look different. The way we interact and shop will look different. And because of that, you have to put yourself And you have to gain these skills around the ability to understand customer experience, product innovation, and adoption. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So one of the things I wanted to kind of highlight for you is how digital transformation truly changes what's happening. How many of you have been to Walt Disney World and worn the magic band? Okay, handful of us. Everyone should try to go experience the magic band, just telling you along the way. So when I was at Disney, this is a project that we rolled out. This project almost took a decade and more than $1 billion. Now, they didn't start with the technology that said, hey, we have a really good idea, let's put bands on people's arms and it will change the experience. They started with the question that you should start all conversations around innovation, because innovation at the core of it is questioning what's happening and building from that. So what do you think the most important thing is for Disney and the theme parks? What do they want to have happen when you go there? What do you think? Okay, so that's interesting, right? Spend money. It costs a bunch of money to go to Disney, but they don't think about, obviously, they're a company who thinks about P&L, but they don't walk around going, our number one objective is how to get people to spend money. The most important thing they want you to think about is how people can make memories. When your family goes to that theme park, the experience that they want you to have is a transformational one for your family. One that, if amazing, will make you come back time and time again. One of my nannies a couple of years ago, she took her 1-year-old son to the theme park. And about halfway through, he threw up all over her and him. Okay, this is a bad plan when you're in the park, right? Because of course you probably bought a change of clothes for your child. You for sure did not bring one for you. And one of the cast members at the park saw this, and they tapped her and they said, hey, let us help you get cleaned up. And they end up giving her an outfit and her son an outfit, and they stay in the park. If the cast member hadn't have caught her, what would have happened? If she had gone home, would she have come back? No way, it's way too much work. Way too much work to catch the train and get to your car and clean someone up and even think about going into the park. And if she had left, what would have happened? She would not only have not made a memory, you would have a very hard time getting her back. Because the first experience she had with her son, was it a positive experience? It wouldn't have been. But for her, because someone stepped in and changed the experience, think she'll be a lifelong member? She'll go back every year for the rest of her life, and they will spend more money than you can possibly imagine, because not only were you able to make memories, but it became an experience that had such a positive impact. So when you think about how users adopt technology and how innovation matters, people adopt it when it creates that positive change that they need and changes things. For Disney, it's about making memories. So they decided they decided this project of what could we do inside of the theme parks that would completely change the experience that our guests have, that would make it so that they could focus more on the experience in the park than anything else around them. And they started down this path of thinking about things like, if you didn't have to have your wallet and your key to your hotel room and your keys to your car and those fast passes that you run around and everyone tries to get their fast passes in so you can figure out how to get on the rides every 2 hours. Wonder if people don't have to do that. And instead of doing that, it becomes a seamless integration. So we started testing the opportunity to make that magical. So all you had to do is have a band, and it unlocked everything you possibly wanted. It opened your room, it got you on the bus, it let you into the theme parks, it let you purchase food, it was your fast pass, it tied to your digital photos. You didn't have to do anything else but have a magic band on your arm. And they started to roll it out and test it. And you know what they found is that it completely transformed the guest experience. For the people who go to Walt Disney World, because California is different, they save for a decade to go to those theme parks. And they will go and spend 7 to 10 days. And they want nothing more than to make it the perfect vacation for their family. And if you can make the experience more seamless with less friction, they will have a better experience and they will be more loyal and create a stronger relationship to your brand. When I think about transformation and building technology, that is the number one thing that I think about, is what's the experience that you create that is so magical that those customers and those guests will come back time and time again. Because it's always easier to keep the first guest than get a second one. Once you lose someone, it's always more expensive. So when you think about innovation and you think about transformation, the important and difficult job is never to find the right answers, it is to find the right question. You don't have to have the right answers, but what you do have to have is the ability to ask good questions. And if you can ask good questions, you will be far more successful than if you believe you have the right answer. Because the world is ever changing. There's no possible way you can know everything. Right? Which is why you need great groups of diverse people surrounding you and helping you think through and solve lots of problems. So imagine questions. I'm a big fan of going to CES. Next one's coming up in about a month. But I have favorite things that I see there that I love that people ask really great questions. So every one of you will need this refrigerator because I already need it. So what if your refrigerator not only has a control panel on it, but it has a camera? And when you're at the grocery store, when you're sitting here and you're trying to figure out what you're making for dinner tonight, you all but have to look at the camera or just ask your phone, what is possibly in the refrigerator that I can make for dinner tonight? Or am I out of eggs, or do I have bread? This is one of my favorite inventions, right? The ability to have a refrigerator that can make recipes for you based on what's in the refrigerator, that knows the expiration date, that allows you to view it from your device, that can make your shopping list, and pretty soon it will be able to order that shopping list and have it delivered to your refrigerator without you ever having to do anything. Right? Those are smart questions. Right? Those are really interesting things to solve, and they take a mass amount of innovation and technology to figure out the right model to bring those to market. I'm also a really big fan of the lawnmower robot. Okay, you're really a big fan too? Did you say you already have one?
Yeah.
Okay, and it's super fast? Yeah, okay, that's awesome. I love this. Right? I love that robotics are trying to think about ways that we reinvent everything. Right? From the sweeping to the mopping to mowing your lawn. I really like this plan. You guys might have wished you had it so you didn't have to mow your lawns when you're growing up, but your kids will have the opportunity to have this. And really, it just runs completely automated. This Christmas, as we were hanging up Christmas lights in our trees, we put basically Wi-Fi electrical sockets behind all of them, and my 10-year-old daughter thinks it's amazing. So now she has the app on her phone, and she can turn off everything that she wants in the house, whether it's the Christmas tree, or the Christmas villages, or the lights outside. Right? We're growing up in a different time where connectivity changes the way that we interact, which requires us to ask way better questions. So I'm going to go back because I think it takes a second. So I know that this comes from a group called IDEO. How many of you know who IDEO is? Okay, so IDEO is one of the most renowned innovation companies in the country.
About 10 years ago,
and I'm just going to play this for a second.
We got approached by one of the largest oral healthcare companies in America, a company called Oral-B. And they said, look, we'd like a new kid's toothbrush because ours is starting to get commoditized. It looks like a lot of kids' toothbrushes out there, and you can't have that. We want to be special, right? So we say, okay, we'll do this. We want to go out in the field and do some field research. And they're kind of not sure about that. Like, it's not rocket science. We're talking about kids brushing their teeth. How hard could that be, right? They would really like us to stop fooling around and start designing, right? But we want to go through this process, this observation process, because we can almost always we can spot opportunities. And so we go out, and we're on like the first day of observation, and we make a small discovery. The small discovery we make is that every kid's toothbrush in the history of the world has had the same implicit assumption. It's a logical assumption, it just isn't exactly right. Which is, the assumption always was, parents have big hands, kids have small hands, and so when you want to make the kid's version, you make it like the parent's brush, only smaller and skinnier. Perfectly logical, until you go out in the field. Until you actually watch humans, little tiny humans, brushing their teeth. And what you notice right away, you get a 5-year-old boy brushing his teeth, he's not holding his toothbrush in his fingertips the way Mom and Dad do. He's fisting it. He's holding it like this because he doesn't have the dexterity. He doesn't have the fine motor controls that his parents have, and so he's got to hold it like this. In fact, the other thing he does is he holds the brush too far up very frequently, so he's punching himself in the face as he's trying to brush his teeth, and he solved that problem too. But the main thing was, came back in the field and said, uh-oh, kids don't need little skinny toothbrushes, kids need big fat toothbrushes, right? Let's make them big fat squishy toothbrushes. And you may have noticed, now every toothbrush company in the world makes these, but our client reports that after we made that little tiny discovery out in the field, sitting in a bathroom watching a 5-year-old boy brush his teeth, they get the best-selling kids' toothbrush in the world for 18 months. So when you think about power, when you think about credibility, if you could go out in the field and do that observation, come up with that finding, and your company, your organization was the best in its field for 18 months afterwards, would that be worth it? I think that would be worth it. And so that's this message about think like a traveler, be an anthropologist, use your powers of observation, have that part of your brain turned up as high as you can all along.
So I love what Tom highlights, and it's this idea around your ability to ask the right questions and observe, because that's where the intersection of innovation happens, is when you are watching what's happening and you are observing, and you're not finding the right answer, but you're exploring it. And that's what our companies today are trying to do, is find those ways that, based on the requirements, allow them to do that. I find that to create transformational experiences, and for me this has been reinforced in everything that I've ever built, is that there's 3 really important parts. You have to be able to create experiences that bring people in. So, as an example, how many of you are thinking about building companies? Okay. So we have like half of the room in here. Oftentimes, I get people who are starting companies, they come and they talk to me. They ask me questions. And what I find most often is that people start building their companies for when they have a state of, say, 1 million users. I'm building this product, and these features are amazing when there's 100,000 users building the product. But how many users do you have on day 1? You have 0, usually. Okay, you might have your friends and family, but they're discounted, they don't count. Because they like you, right? So when you very first build a company or a product, you don't have any users. And when you build experiences that only work when you have a steady state of large numbers of users, you never achieve the adoption that you want. So when you think about creating experiences in product, in small or large scale, the number one thing that matters is that you create an experience that will be engaging for people and that will be sticky. The fastest growing title in the country at the C-suite is Chief Customer Experience Officer. Right? That's the C-suite title that we're going. Did you know that I would predict in the next 5 to 7 years, what you think of as a Chief Marketing Officer position no longer exists. Chief Marketing Officers are now tied into technology. They are required to have technology as a core competency in order to transform their businesses. And those companies whose marketing officers aren't, those jobs are being taken over by chief digital officers. Because the number one important thing in companies today is the integration of those digital and physical experiences and what that means. So in order to create transformational experiences, you have to understand experience, you have to understand why people buy your product, and you have to be able to create the content that pulls them in. As an example, the other day we were building a simulation for a really large retailer. And we decided to imagine the world that what happens if you were to walk into a store like a Target and Walmart and you don't know where something is, and all you do is ask your phone. And all you could do is say, hey, Walmart, can you show me tell me where the toothpaste is? And it doesn't just say it's on aisle H12. It actually navigates you in real time in the store to the shelf and the product location. Right? That's what people have to be able to do, right? Is wear a different hat for a different set of innovation. And when you do that, you drive adoption and you change experiences. And this is happening everywhere across the board. So one of the things I wanted to do, I'm just going to highlight this for you. So I spent a bunch of time at Disney, as you know. And in the Disney kind of 10 commandments of things that are required to create experiences that will tie people to your brand. These are ones that some of these you will have always think about, right? Know your audience, wear your guest shoes, organize the flow. So one of the things I became really appreciative of and really gained a knowledge of is the art of storytelling. Now, I always thought of marketing as storytelling, but a lot of times marketing isn't. At Disney, the thing that they are so good at is understanding all of the story that you need to know in order to relate to what that content is. So when you go to the theme park, it's not just about that we gave you a Star Wars experience. It's about that there was such a powerful story behind that that you wanted to be part of it. I built my 3D printing company completely based on the fact that people love to be part of their favorite stories. You want to pay for your favorite baseball team. You want to be a superhero. It's the reason we buy billions of dollars of merchandise every year, right? We want to Fortnite. I'm sure all of you are Fortnite players, but it's the reason, right? We buy skins on Fortnite, right? We are becoming part of storylines, right? That are integrated into our lives. And so if you look at number 4, which he called create a weenie, but I'll tell you what that means. So in the early days, he noticed that whenever he had a hot dog for his dog, he followed him around. And he would magically, go through whatever sequence it was to do that. And he found that in the theme parks that you needed a similar experience. You needed something that people were driving towards, something that they wanted to achieve, and that you needed this arc of a story in order to drive engagement. And so you had to create these kind of 10 commandments around creating story that was engaging enough. I've taken this same model and applied it to every tech company I've built since then. That there's a story that you're part of, it's an immersive experience, and whenever we do that well, we can both accelerate sales and adoption of what we're building and drive more success. It's happened time and time again. Steve Jobs once said, innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. So just pause on that for a second. What types of innovation are there? Because we tend to think of product innovation, but are there other types of innovation? Process innovation? Yeah?
Like culture your company?
Sure, there could be organizational innovation. Absolutely. Social innovation. Social impact is a very big driver of companies and innovation today. Mechanical innovation, absolutely. So sometimes I think we get caught in thinking that the only innovation a company can have is a product that they're taking to market. But competitive advantage can be built in many forms. So give me an example of a company that you can think about that's not product innovation. Amazon? What innovation would you consider them? Yes, almost supply chain, right? Innovation on the back end. I still often think of companies like McDonald's. So McDonald's has been successful for a very long time. But what are they innovative at? What's their innovation? Speed is one of their innovations, but consistency and delivery is the biggest innovation that has driven them. If we go to McDonald's here, is it the same everywhere else in the world? It is. We will not discuss about throughput on the drive-through lines, but the product consistency is the same. We took our kids to Paris over spring break last year, and we happened to go into the McDonald's that is right by Versailles. And it operates with actually more efficiency than anyone that we have here. But they continue to innovate around process and around subscriptions. So when you walk into the one in Versailles, they had probably 15 double-sided order screens where you just went to tap to order. When we got there right before lunch, and they were getting ready for the lunch rush, they probably had 1,000 Happy Meal boxes already staged behind. Because with the process innovation that they deployed in that store, they could take upwards of 20 orders every 2 minutes through the screens. Right, so then think about what it takes to fulfill those orders on the back end. Right, that requires a massive amount of innovation to do that throughput. So innovation happens in all sorts of ways. It doesn't always have to be product. And I think that's a really cool thing to think about. You have all sorts of ways that you can create innovation that creates leadership. One of the challenges when so I teach in the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. And these are all businesses that have at least $200,000 in revenue, that have been in business for a couple of years, and we have businesses upwards of $20 to $30 million who come through the program. And one of the challenges that we always give them when they're problem solving, and I think this applies in many things, is that when they're trying to create innovation, they have to create ideas that are more than grounded. So oftentimes when we look to solve a problem, we go to grounded ideas, things that are super safe. I ask you to solve a problem, like, I got this, right? 100,000 people have done it like this before, and we do that. But the people who succeed at innovation, they're creating things that are like spaced out ideas that are laughable, that no one might believe. And they're at minimum pushing to blue sky. These ideas that are a little bit more novel, they're fresh looking, they're things that you wouldn't expect. So one of the challenges that you will have as you build career, and even I think in your educational process, is that when you are asked to solve a problem, can you develop the skill set to move it upstack? To not always go with safe and predictable, but to go with things that are more fresh and novel and innovative. Things that push the envelope a little way. How many, you should have maybe have all heard, how many of you have heard of the company called Kistix? Because right, we're sitting here at BYU, I feel like everyone should have heard of Kistix. So who is Kistix?
It's different flavors of chapsticks.
Okay, right, so two flavored chapsticks, when you kiss they make a new flavor. Yeah. It was students who created this company, okay? And so, see, this was, not a good idea. So if we had built this chapstick company and we were taking it to market, where's the place you would go deliver your product? Where would you have people buy it? What'd you say? College campuses. Everyone always says college campuses. I'm much better with that answer than the high school campuses that some people sometimes say. But where you probably show up at where? Places like the gas station, right? Like places where you check out, right? Where it's an instant purchase, right? All of those checkout places. So they did that. They went and got deals with the Associated Foods and with the Walmarts and started these regional tests. Because if we had a chapstick business, we'd do the same thing. Like, how do you sell a lot of chapstick? Oh, you put it at places where people spend small dollars as they're checking out. If you think about this for a second, how many chapsticks do you have to sell to make $1 million? We got to sell a lot of chapstick, I feel like, just make $1 million. And so the team started thinking about what are ways that we could push distribution innovation, right? It's a chapstick product. And so they ended up, and this was on the very early days of Shark Tank, I think being on the second season of Shark Tank. So this was before it was everyone's favorite marketing channel, because today we have a lot of companies that go. So they went on Shark Tank, and what happened? Anyone know? So Mark Cuban funded them, right? Overnight, distribution completely changed. No longer was it, are you at the local Walmart in the region selling chapstick? Overnight, people are looking for them online. They're through entirely different distribution channels, which was a completely different idea, right? At the time that they went on Shark Tank, that was a very blue sky type idea to take their business. From there, there's a whole other part of the story, but Mark Cuban decided that they should buy howtokiss.com. How popular do you think howtokiss.com is? It's a very popular URL because it's a direct match domain, right? And in the world of SEO, that's a really powerful thing, right? And so the business, over one Valentine's Day, Hallmark paid to do an entire takeover of the entire website, right? And the whole business started changing, right? And it looked completely different. And so one of the challenges we all have is, how do you think bigger? How do you think bigger than what you were just at? I was just with a friend. I was talking about the company we're currently building, an investment. And he said, Cyd, it will take you as much effort to build a $50 million company as a $1 billion company. And I actually pushed him on that. I said, do you really think that's true? And he said, yes. He said, if you think big enough at the very beginning, the amount of work you will spend to one or the other will become the same. But if you don't fund and fuel where you're at right now with enough capital and enough smart people and enough accelerants around you, you won't get there, but you'll do the same amount of work. If that's true, I have to think bigger. Right? I have to be pushed much bigger in how I think and how I develop and how we build. So really quickly, there's three things. Okay, you can listen to music in the background. 3 things that I want you to think about when it comes to how you create a mindset around innovation and transformation. How many of you have seen The World of Color at Disneyland? Okay, I call it the Bellagio on steroids, because it's like, water and lights and lasers and projections, and it's amazing. And one fall we were in the R&D lab, and this idea came that said, hey, what happens if people who watch a nighttime spectacular are part of it? They're not just an observer, they're an active participant in the show. So we created these LED ear hats that glow with the show, so that every person who is watching the show becomes part of it. So the initial demo of this happens in April, and Bob Iger comes through. And he puts the ear hats on. It's a magical experience. We launched it at the opening of Carsland. And at the opening of Carsland, when 3,000 people had those ear hats on, it was literally magical, the emotion that you could feel from that. So this required us to build programmable LED hats and LED sensor, IR sensors in the park, and integrate with show control systems in a very complex infrastructure. One of the things that you have to become very good at, and I know you guys are learning about lean startup and nail it, then scale it, but you have to become agile in all aspects of your life. And especially in business. You have to have the ability to move quickly and easily. We got the ask in late December to develop this entire system and roll it out for the opening of Carsland in June. That is a crazy timeline. That required us building product, getting it produced in China, shipping it back, creating show control system integrations, creating a whole entire sort of thing. But the entire team that was behind that had a mindset of being agile and solving every problem that came every day in order to get that product delivered. You have to have this ability to adapt and not complain and be agile enough in your environments. You also have to have the ability to do what I call activate. I think activation is one of the most important skill sets that you can have in addition to creative problem solving. Because if you can activate, you can make things happen by turning thoughts into action. You will work with people over the course of your career who are really good at ideas and really bad at execution. I value execution as much as the idea. Because if you can't execute, you can't deliver. Almost every idea all of us will have, 1,000 other people have thought of. Right? It's very hard to have a brand new idea. We might approach it differently, but there's a lot of people with a lot of great ideas. The people who win are the people who can execute. And not just by themselves, but they can activate entire teams. So I had spent, in our 3D printing business, we had developed a toy line with Hasbro. And Hasbro and Marvel had introduced me into rolling this out at Target. Okay, and so it took us 6 months and about 40 different departments to get sign-off, and we were rolling out for holiday at Target. So we had all this infrastructure, and part of that rollout and install, because at the time we needed a scanner on the end cap to do a 3D face scan in order for you to get your product. And one of the partners that I needed to help build those 3D face scanners called me on a Friday night, 2 weeks before. I had just signed the Target contract. Like end of September, finally signed the contract, we're deploying end of October. And one of my partners calls me Friday night at 5 o'clock, and they said, we're not going to hit your deadline, we're pulling out. And I'm 2 weeks from install. Right? We've been working on this deal for 7 months. And so I'm like, okay. So I walked back in on Monday, and I turned to the team, and I said, I'm going to ask you to do the impossible, and I don't even know if it's possible. But the only thing that I'm going to ask is that we brainstorm every possible avenue we have to solve this problem and to still launch. And we might come to the end of this and see that none of that's possible. But let's try anyway. And I'm just going to ask you to play that game. So everyone in the room agreed that they would help play that game. And we brainstormed lists of items on these 2 whiteboards. And we said, okay, everyone takes tasks and go activate. Let's see if there's any way to solve this. We missed our install date by 1 day. Now, it did require 100 family members coming the weekend to install and all sorts of crazy deliveries into those. But we met it because the team had the mindset of being able to activate. They didn't just say they wouldn't do it, but they wanted that moment and they launched into that. And you have to have that skill set. You have to have the ability to activate, to make things actually happen. This is one that I try really hard to develop in my career. I was telling Scott in April, so my son who's a senior in high school this year, I really wanted him to have more experience in technology companies. And so I decided that I should create a tech apprenticeship program, a tech entrepreneur apprenticeship program. And so it was April, and I figured I should run it in the summer for all the juniors and seniors in high school. So I called some of my friends at the venture firm, and I said, hey, can I partner with you, and can we just create this program? And they said yes. And like 4 weeks later, we launched it, we filled all the spots, and we ran it as an internship program this summer. And I remember them coming back to me, and they're like, how in the world did you even run a program like that, like let alone come up with the idea, execute that, and deliver it in the course of like 60 days? It's because not only have I developed that skill, but the people around me do also. So that you can very quickly activate around whatever it is, large or small. develop that skill. It will make you more valuable in every setting that you can possibly be in. Then the other one I just wanted to highlight, this is my last one of the three, is that you have to learn how to be adaptable. Have any of you ever swam in a bioluminescent bay? All right, they're amazing. You should put it on your bucket list. There's one in the Grand Caymans. And when you jump into the water at night, all of the particles light up around you. So imagine making glow snow angels. When the boat leaves the bay, it looks like LED lights are lighting the path. And every motion that you make adapts to the motion you create. Right? That's your job. That's the thing we have to do better. We have to be able to adapt to the new conditions that are created every day. I often say in startup land, it's like managing a crisis every day. Whether it's human capital, product delivery, customer expectations, raising capital, doesn't matter what it is. There's some new challenge that you're faced with every day. And those people in your company that are have the best ability to adapt, help you become the most successful. And so when I think about building companies and being ready for transformation and skill sets that make us better, for me, that is also one of them. And not only will I say that you have to adapt, but you have to do it with the positive attitude. So the last person that you want on your team is the person that every time there's a challenge says, I'm sorry, there's no way that can be solved. I'm sorry, I guess we should give up. I'm sorry, we're not going to do that anymore. Right? You want that person out. Because you need people that make you successful. And you need people that help you achieve that. Just kind of one last story. When I went to raise venture capital, so in 2017, only 2% of all venture capital went to female entrepreneurs. And my shot of raising capital is less than 3%. So I get what that means, right? 97% of the time, I'm going to get rejected. But you don't really know what that means until you're standing in front of all of those investors and people don't fund you. Right? We eventually got funding, but what it means is you're going to do a lot of meetings. One of my good friends said, just know you're going to probably do 50 meetings in order to get the money that you want. And what you had to learn in those moments is how to adjust to the new and changing conditions, because it wasn't always easy. Sometimes it was very difficult. There were days when I decided I wouldn't pick up my email until I got to my office, because it was hard. Right? But I had a team around me, and I was willing to adapt to new data that was coming in and the environment that we're placed in. And you will be placed in many of those environments, not just in work, but in your personal life. And the better that you adapt, the better you'll be able to overcome and handle the things that get thrown at you. I tie all of these things into what I call the art of the ask. I challenge you to become very good at asking for what you want and being bold enough to ask big. Because if you're bold enough to ask big, then you will achieve the things that you want. Last year, I had a deal that was not working out, and I decided I'd go ask them for the $1 million deal that I really wanted. And so I walked into his office, to one of our big customers' office, and I said, the only deal that makes sense for us is if we construct it this way, and it leads to over $1 million for the year. And do you know what he said? Okay, let's figure that out. And there have been times when I didn't ask, and I should have. And so you want to develop the skills that allow you to build your skill sets so that not only can you ask, but that you can innovate and deliver and transform, which is really how you're going to build great success along your career. And my one last quote for you is this one, and I believe this is true. It's not what you do once in a while that shapes our lives, it's what we do constantly. The things that you want to be great at, you have to practice and try every day. And if you do, then you'll become successful. So with that, I think we're right on time. So thank you for coming, and good luck in finals.